Welcome to The Lens with me, Sarah Travers. The Lens is a business in the community podcast in partnership with One Young World. Well, let me introduce our guests to you today. They are Andy Briggs, Group CEO of Phoenix Group, one of the UK's largest long-term savings and retirement businesses, and Girish Ananthanarayanan, founder and curator of Raahi, a channel that aims to bridge the worlds of professional management and social development perspectives. Girish is also a senior project manager at Dalberg, a global group working to build a more inclusive and sustainable world. Well, in this episode, we'll be discussing social impact. What is it? Why is it important? And what is the role of business and business leaders in having a positive social impact? To find out more, let's get into the conversation. Andy, Girish, welcome to The Lens. So let's find out a little bit about our guests today. And Andy, I'm going to start with you. If you could please tell our lovely listeners a bit about yourself and really how you've come to be in your role at Phoenix Group, and anything you can tell us about outside of work life as well, please.
Great to be here and looking forward to the conversation today. I'm Andy Briggs. I'm the CEO of Phoenix Group. Alongside that, I'm also president of the Association of British Insurers, so the trade body for insurers. And how did I come to be here? Well, I guess, in my younger life, I was very sporting and often ended up leading sporting teams. So probably very early on in my career, had a view that I wanted to lead a business, play a leadership role. Then the thing that was really important to me, and always has been very important to me, was to be doing a role where it really is, if you do it well, it's really beneficial to society. At Phoenix Group, we look after £290 billion on behalf of our 12 million customers. And if we do that well, it makes such a massive difference to society. Only 1 in 7 people in the UK are saving enough for a decent retirement. So there's a massive need for someone to stand up and do that much better for customers. So yeah, combination of those two things, really. The sense of core social purpose in the role is really important, and I enjoy leading things. Outside of work, I've got four children. My daughters are 34 and 31, so they're sort of pretty independent, but Dad gets asked for career advice quite often. And then my boys are 17 and 15. So the kids keep me busy.
I'm sure they do. And what was your sport then? You said you were leading teams.
I played a lot of volleyball as a youngster. I was England under-20s volleyball squad. Those days are past. I'm a keen golfer now. So and a bit of paddle tennis.
How do you get the work-life balance right to make sure that you get time to be dad and taxi driver and sports coach and all of those things and lead such an important position that you're in?
Yeah, so I'd probably say two things to that. The first is that I'm a dad and a husband before I'm a CEO, yeah? So I'm quite open that I care more about the family than the job. Having said that, the reality is the job takes the vast majority of the time in reality, but I prioritise the things with the family that are important. I think the other key thing I think is really key as a CEO of a big business is basically talent development. Having the really best people, truly inclusive and diverse, creating an environment where they feel they can take responsibility, accountability, and drive things through. If you get a really clear purpose-based strategic direction for the business, and then get the very best talent on board, you can leave the team to get on with a lot of stuff, yeah. I get good people and expect them to deliver strongly on their areas of the business.
Well, that is amazing to hear. So park those thoughts. I'm going to come back and unpack those a little bit as we go. But let's meet Girish now. Girish, it is so nice to see you today. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and how you've come to be in your current role?
Thank you, Sarah, and wonderful to be here. Andy, lovely to meet you. So my name is Girish Anant, or Girish Ananthanarayanan, and I come from an idyllic small town in south of India called Cochin, and spent all my childhood there and was lucky enough to study in India's premier institutions, after which I joined McKinsey & Company as a management consultant, worked there for 5 years. And through all this time, I honestly think the easiest way to explain it to people is that I was always the social sector guy. So from school, I was, campaigning for animal rights in 11th grade. In college, trying to figure out social experiments in villages through a club that we had there, and all of that. And at the same time, the mainstream was built around me, and I kept going along the path that was laid out. And so while at McKinsey, I worked on banking, on technology, and on whatever social sector work was available in India at that time. And that included working on a microfinance piece in Indonesia, working on employment in India, and luckily ended up also doing a growth strategy for an education NGO called People. And fast forward 1 year after doing that, I joined them full time as part of their leadership team because I fell in love with their work. And what they were trying to do is enable every child in India to live up to their potential. And the gap between actual and potential is many times the highest for the poorest of the poor. And so the organization was looking to work with the government in the government schools, which are fee-free in India, and trying to improve their quality. I spent 4 years there, learned a lot, and after that went on a career break, at which point I think things came together to creating the idea of Raahi Impact, which is essentially a community and a platform so that the nonprofit sector in India can come together, learn from each other, and grow together.
So I love this concept, the purpose of Raahi. And I believe Raahi means traveler in many Indian languages. So it really is that knowledge exchange. But what are the outcomes? What are the outworkings of that knowledge exchange and sharing best practice?
For me, the highlight was an experiment that I ran. So usually in every sector, you do salary benchmarking. You need to find what is competitive salary, and usually you outsource that to a consulting firm. For me, the question was, the data is coming from folks in the sector, and the decision of what to do with it is also with the people in the sector. So what if I just create a form, send it around to folks in my network? They tell me what the salary levels are. I keep it to myself, but I give them back the aggregate data. And that was an experiment in trust and collaboration. In the first year, there were 64 organizations that participated. In the second year, we had 100 organizations across India. And everyone agreed to putting parts of the report out as public. And so that began a journey of creating public goods, of benchmarked practices, of what's the onboarding practices that NGOs do, what is the travel policy, what is the salary benchmark and benefit benchmark, so that over time we grow together. And now that you have knowledge created, how do you drive discussion? So over the last few months, I've also been driving some online spaces, and perhaps in a few months, we will also move offline. The demand is growing, so that you have the podcast where you shape perspectives, you have the reports where you create knowledge, and you've got the discussion forums like the knowledge exchange sessions where you then discuss all of it and bring it together. So that's kind of like the community and platform that I've been building with Raahi.
Brilliant. So we are talking, Girish and Andy, about positive social impact. And we even, what does that even mean? So Andy, let's go back to you now. And working in insurance, it is so important that we're thinking about our future. How do you believe you and your business can have a positive social impact, both inside with your own people and then, of course, externally with your customers?
The first is, if you like, a business philosophy. So the way we think about it here at Phoenix, the way I think about it is that we want to get the very best talent to be truly inclusive and diverse so everyone can come to work and be themselves, and we make much better decisions from a breadth of perspectives and experiences. But all of that energy and that passion in this great talent is focused on our core social purpose and the difference we can make to the lives of our customers. And also on our role in broader society, because if we get those things right, that's how we will deliver most for our shareholders. And then you create a virtuous circle. You can then invest more in your people and talent, more in your customer propositions, more in the role in broader society. So as part of that, it really is essential you look to put what is right for customers in the very center of the business that you're in. For us, that's actually quite straightforward because, as I said before, only 1 in 7 people in the UK are saving enough for a decent retirement that's not a material drop off from their pre-retirement income. And that's basically because the UK used to have these very, sort of gilt-edged, wonderful defined benefit pensions. That kind of all closed off 10 or 20 years ago. But people even retiring today still have a heavy chunk of that defined benefit. Go forward 10 or 20 years, no one will have that, and the level of saving at the moment is just not enough. The other challenge in the UK is that only 10% of the population are getting advice as they journey to and through retirement. 90% are getting next to nothing. So from a kind of social purpose perspective, we're very fortunate as a business because we're right in the sweet spot as the largest player, trying to help sort and fix those challenges and opportunities. I think the other piece I would also draw out on this is sustainability. So, we are investing 290 billion for our customers over the very long term. So we do put sustainability at the core of what we're doing, partly because it's the right thing to do, partly because it's important to our customers, but also because it makes commercial sense. So if we're investing for our customers over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, ultimately investments that are positive for the planet, renewable energy, for example, or social housing, they're going to be really good investments that generate good returns over that long period of time. So we also put sustainability in the core, and we talk about that from a people and planet perspective.
I'd love to go back to that first point about making sure that you're hiring the best talent, and really when it comes to recruitment and those hiring practices, that onboarding. That's all well and good, but how do you go about actually achieving that? How do you make sure that you're giving people that hand up, that leg up, whatever way you want, and the support they need?
It's a great question, Sarah. And the reality of that is you have to work hard at it. So we have a strong focus on inclusion and diversity here at Phoenix, and we're not backing off that just because of the current zeitgeist. We think it's the right thing to do, and we think it makes commercial sense because you get better talent, better decisions from a broader perspectives, better represent your customers and communities. So we'll always pick the best person for the role, but we insist on diverse shortlists. If a headhunter comes to us with a shortlist that isn't diverse, they get sent away again until they come back with one that is diverse. We do a lot of work, for example, with local schools in underprivileged areas offering work experience. We were one of the key players in 10,000 black interns. But having kind of said all of that, there's still a long, long way to go. So it ultimately comes down to really trying to drive both recruitment practices to make sure we're accessing different pools of talent and diverse shortlists, but also making sure that the development programs we have in place are available to all, and that we're encouraging all colleagues across the organisation to look to develop and grow and get opportunities to grow and progress. By being more diverse, you get better decisions from a broader range of perspectives that means that the business performs better. We do it both because it's the right thing to do, but also because it makes commercial sense. And I think that's the key point I would emphasize. Why would you not do something that makes commercial sense for your business? Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody should have a chance to enjoy good work. Girish, you've talked a little bit about people, but tell us a little bit more about what social impact actually means to you.
When I began, you know how it is. You think that you want to change the world. And you think that you want to, you will leave this huge dent in society with your individual action. But over time, that has evolved to saying that I come with a certain amount of privilege. To walk away from your privilege is also a factor of the fact that you have the ability to walk away because of privilege. And so for me, social impact has slowly evolved to this question of responsible privilege. It is, are you using the power and the position that you have, the opportunities and the forums that you get to, one, make sure that you voice the concerns of those without privilege, and second, continue to learn what it means to have social impact. For me, it is about making sure that I can sleep peacefully at night, knowing that I have done my best to minimize the harm that I've created and maximize the amount of social value that I can. I was lucky enough again, having worked at McKinsey, gave me the access, gave me the networks to then join the social sector as a full-time employment and a career. And I came in as a CXO. And there was a friend of mine who had worked for 10 years in the social sector by then. She got angry at me. She was like, there are people who work in villages on the ground and who have an incredible amount of knowledge in them, yet they never get a chance and a forum. Look at you, you have all those brands with you. And when you join the sector, you join at a CXO position. And that stayed with me. And so a lot of what I try to do with the podcast specifically is for people like me who join from the corporate sector, can we make sure that they have the nuanced development sector perspectives so that they don't learn in their initial years on the backs of others' mistakes and assume that just because they know how to solve something logically, education cannot be solved with first principles. At the same time, can I help those who are in the social sector, who have been homegrown, not hit a glass ceiling because they're not ready for leadership? So the other part that I then bring in the YouTube channel is simple management principles, because there is no structured training for nonprofits. The examples you will find online will not orient towards nonprofits. They will be unrelatable examples from the corporate world. And so how do you do an appraisal conversation properly? How do you engage audiences? Top 10 tips from the world's best teachers. And things like that I've picked up along the way. And that becomes a way for me to kind of help those coming from privilege in the corporate sector to understand the nuances of the social sector better, and those in the social sector to grow into leadership roles with the training that their systems may not be ready to provide.
Do you mind if I just chip in there? Because that's really fascinating and interesting, Girish. And I think the reality is I've had opportunities through my life to get to bigger and better roles. So even if, folk that come from a privileged background, for me, it has to be inclusive of all. But if you're in any position of responsibility, it's really important that you then are very thoughtful about your role and impact in broader society. And what you describe is absolutely fantastic. I think it is incumbent on all senior leaders to be very thoughtful about how they can use that privileged position they find themselves in to really help make change in society that will benefit all. Yeah,
absolutely. And if I may just round that out, I think the first conversation I had with a professor of mine on the podcast, he changed how I thought about it. His big question was, how can you say that there is something called the social impact sector and then a section that is not? So while we call it, so he's like, whether you're a corporate or a business or a NGO, at the end of the day, you are having social impact. You are having environmental impact. And the question is it net positive or net negative? And what do you do with it? And that reframed it in my head.
We have to make sure that all these conversations aren't just happening in echo chambers. Isn't that the thing? We have to make sure that people are all coming to the table, everyone, and there's nobody has exactly the right answer, but it is just sharing those experiences. Do you think that perhaps those that have come from not a privileged background, do they go on to become better leaders? Just throwing that out there, Andy.
I think you can be an equally good leader whether you come from a privileged background or a less privileged background. For me, the real travesty is all that talent that just doesn't get the opportunity in the first place. Yeah, this goes gender, race, background, experiences, ways of thinking. If you get diversity across all those things, you better represent your customers, you better represent society, and you do make better decisions from those different perspectives. And that's the piece to kind of hold on to.
I think it's really interesting when you look at the fact, some people still say, why do we still need to keep going on about gender diversity and all of that? But in fact, 50% of women are carers by the age of 45. I thought that was a staggering statistic. Is that being a parent as well as looking after parents?
It's the sandwich generation, basically. So very often it's both. My wife is busily kind of keep our two boys on the straight and narrow, and then is up seeing her 87-year-old mother in Glasgow most weeks, yeah. And so, for a lot, it's both ends. I think, one of the key bits I really would advocate here is, if you like, what ways of working. So many organisations, so many businesses have this set view of, 5 days a week, standard hours, and so on and so forth. And the reality is, and it does tend more to women, but it is women and men. When particularly you suddenly get significant care and responsibilities for an elderly relative, if the organisation doesn't have flexible working, so at Phoenix we offer 10 days paid carers leave a year to all our employees. And it's been one of the best things we've ever done. The colleagues love it because it gives them that bit more flexibility when they're caring for the elderly relative. And we love it because they stay working for us rather than fall out the workplace. And this particularly is relevant for over 50s. If over 50s fall out of the workplace, and one of the most common reasons is they have care and responsibilities for an elderly parent, they're the group that are least likely to get back into the workplace. So everyone loses. They lose in terms of the benefits of work and in terms of the ability to earn money and save for a decent retirement. The organisation loses someone with lots of skills and experience. That they then have a load of money they need to spend to recruit someone else and train them up and so on and so forth. So I really would advocate flexible working carers leave being really critical.
I'm sure that's great advice for anyone listening, just to implement a policy like that, because quite often the employee doesn't need that support forever, but just have had that flexibility, as you say, that little bit of that elastic band could stretch, makes all the difference. And the loyalty that you get after you show that too. Girish, what do you think of that?
Fully agree. And I just wanted to extend that to say it's not just about older workers. There is one more benefit, which is that people will pay it forward. In my case, when I was 26, and I was at McKinsey and, early in my career, my family went through a personal medical crisis. And I spoke to someone who had wanted to work with, and he said, listen, I just heard about your dad. I want you to be off work for the next month and a half. Do not look for work. Not look for projects. We have a special leave for this situation. So I spent a month and a half getting paid and taking care of my dad. And after that, when I was, part of the leadership team at People, when people would have grandparents passing away, when people would have situations at home where you just need to be there, though at least 5 instances afterwards, I knew how they felt. I knew their hesitation to take time off and their sense of duty to be at work. And I knew the level of flexibility that I could offer them. And going that way makes such a big difference. Just internally, I know that I'm doing the right thing and they know that there's someone looking out for them. So I would just say that the idea of paying it forward is something that I would deeply anchor on, because that multiplies the impact of what we do. And I would just add one more thing. I was reading this super interesting HBR article the other day, turned up on LinkedIn. Over time, we've come to a place where we keep trying to quantify the benefits of doing the right thing. We end up saying it's better for the economy. We end up saying it's better for business. All of that is good. But let us not forget that sometimes you do not need to make economic reasons. Sometimes maybe we should also just make a simple moral imperative of doing the right thing. So that is perhaps also the wrapper I'd add. It's just the right thing to do, whether it is ensuring that everyone gets an equal opportunity, ensuring that if someone needs to take care of someone at home, the organization is flexible around it.
I totally agree, Girish. It's the right thing to do, and that's a good enough reason in of itself. But invariably, it also makes commercial sense. And so there's 2 very strong reasons why it's the right thing to do.
Andy, you're also a member of Business in the Community's Leadership Council. So I would love to know your top 3 leadership lessons and what benefits come from being part of BITC's powerful and huge network.
2 things I particularly value about BITC. One is, and I find it really valuable, the opportunities to interact with people from other sectors. What are their issues? What are their challenges? What's going on in their worlds? The second bit I'd say from a BITC perspective is it's a real leader in terms of business in the community, that broader impact that businesses can have. So, I've learned a huge amount from, I led a Seeing is Believing visit, for example, where in job centres in Tower Hamlets as part of that. Great learning opportunities, great quality, great content. In terms of the first part of your question on leadership, get really clear on the purpose and strategy for the business. So why you exist, what's your role in society, and then where you want to play, how you're going to compete and win better than competition, so you better meet the needs of customers over time. But the second thing I would say is get the very best talent and people. That might be hiring new people, it might be developing the people that you have. It might be thinking about how the teams work, how you organise the work as effectively as possible. But that, it is very easy to get drawn into doing rather than leading as a leader. So those are probably the two things I particularly draw out, Sarah.
Girish, okay, so, you might not be at the same stage as Andy, but you've got this wonderful network that you belong to. What leadership lessons could you share with our listeners today?
I would say listen to every voice in the room, and including the less articulate ones, because I realized that I've made the mistake early on that if something is well articulated, I go with it. But sometimes remembering to then check in with that person who didn't speak in the meeting and be like, hey, is that all right? Did that come out fine? Does that match up to your lived experience? Whether it is within the organization or across organizations, has been something that I found to be powerful. And second is, do not underestimate the value of great facilitation spaces, which is the quality of engagement between folks in the community. And the quality of learnings that you can draw out from people is hugely a function of how you facilitate the conversation. Sarah, prime example here. You've been driving the both of us to make a lot of sense over the last 30, 40 minutes. So that role, I'm realizing it's the invisible driver of everyone growing together.
Another thing I'd kind of say in terms of my leadership journey, what I've learned. Earlier in my career, I used to spend quite a lot of time thinking how I ought to come across, how I ought to present myself at work, yeah. And what I learned over time was that basically was a lot of energy going in to try and be something I wasn't, because it's to be what I thought I ought to be. It was your thought about the different articulate voices in the room and so on and so forth, yeah. What I've kind of learned over time is just if you be yourself, firstly, all of your energy goes into productively, into the business rather than into putting this mask on that's not you. But actually, as far as followership's concerned, if you be yourself, people smell authenticity and smell inauthenticity really easily and quickly. And so, being authentic to yourself, I'd say, is another key leadership lesson for me.
And of course, we've got Business in the Community also has a fabulous job coaching program, which is encouraging businesses across the UK to support job seekers in a series of coaching conversations and sessions, which is fabulous as well. Facilitating those discussions, taking the time rather than being completely bogged down in tasks and work always. Coaching's wonderful. I would love to know at this point in the conversation if you have any questions for each other. Girish, have you any questions of Andy?
I do. So here's a question, Andy. It's a little broad, but I think you'll enjoy it. So if a genie came out of a bottle and gave you 3 wishes to make maybe businesses better, maybe society better, maybe personal, what would you wish for?
Oh, wow. So I think, I would focus in on kind of equality of opportunity, so that everyone gets an equal chance and an equal opportunity. And then from there, it's down to them whether they want to take it and go for it.
So, Andy, do you have any questions of Girish?
Girish, what the question I'd ask you actually is, I run a FTSE 100 company in the UK focused on pensions and savings. Perhaps based on this conversation, what would your advice to me be? What would your counsel to me be from your experience? What would you suggest that our business should focus on?
If there is one thing that I would recommend folks do, it is to meet the people that they are working for, no matter how high up they are in the chain or how distant they are. What I have seen is, especially when it is a senior leader, they end up spending a day, a quick visit in and out, which is often curated as well in terms of experience. if there are ways in which they could immerse in raw, unscripted lives, it makes so much of a difference in how they make their decisions afterwards. And they have those faces in mind when they take the tough decisions.
Absolutely. The pressure on the diary in a big role is always challenging. We have a head office in London. We have offices 4 or 5 around the country. The vast majority of our colleagues are based in those offices out of London. I don't get out there anything like enough. So that's wise counsel, and I will try harder.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Now, we're also encouraging our listeners to read a piece of research, expand their minds, and maybe a report or indeed a book or something else that has inspired you to be more responsible. Could you share what you would recommend? Andy?
Oh, wow. I'm not a great reader, if I'm honest. I'm going to struggle to give you a book recommendation, but it's something I will think more about. What I would really encourage, though, is take opportunities to meet people from different sectors, different industries, different parts of your own organisations. And much as Girish was just saying, ask the open questions, really get into open questions and listening mode. I personally find that's a much, much better way of learning and developing.
Oh, well, I'm with you on that one. I used to be a great reader, but now I listen all of the time, and it is about that connection with people now as well. So getting out there and having conversations, which we're not doing just as much. So I'm wondering, Girish, have you anything else that you would like to share with us?
I actually had the exact same answer as Andy, which is much more than reading. Go out there, talk to someone, anyone, and listen. Yes.
Yeah. Now, final question to each of you, as with all of our guests on the lens. As responsible leaders, which both of you are and have proved that you are, what then are you personally committed to doing more of or less of in the coming year? I think, Andy, you said you're going to get down there and meet the workers, but anything else?
The thing I probably would answer to that is in this environment of people moving away from sustainability and from diversity, equity, and inclusion, not doing that, because we strongly believe that it's the right thing to do, and our business is better. The outcomes for our customers are better. It's a better place for colleagues to work if we focus on those things. So I would say withstand the tide and keep moving strongly in the direction we're already going in on those topics.
I applaud that one. Girish?
Well, for me, the one thing that I have been working on and I continue to want to work on is how do you square understanding that things are not straightforward. There are things that go against business sense, like against first principles logic. How do you still articulate that in a way that business leaders, in a way that organization leaders who are, like I said, distanced from the beneficiary, still get it, whether it is the nonprofit space or the for-profit space? I think learning to communicate the voice of the most underprivileged in a way that lets you still into those rooms, but also makes the point, is something that I'm working on.
Girish, Andy, thank you for joining us on The Lens. It's been a pleasure talking to you. My guests, Andy Briggs, Group CEO of Phoenix Group, and Girish Ananthanarayanan, founder and curator of Raahi. You've been listening to The Lens with me, Sarah Travers, and if your business would like support to become more responsible and indeed support people into work and enhance your social impact, then please do visit us at www.bitc.org.uk and we will help. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.